everyone, to Watch Challenge. On each episode, we challenge ourselves to find and watch a film of a particular type and then report back the results to each other and you fine listeners. My name is Mike Wendt.
And I'm Aaron Spears. This episode's listener suggested challenge was time travel films. It was submitted by listener Sarah. And Sarah, you picked a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I don't know why this actually wasn't one of the first few topics we picked, Mike.
No, I know. It should have been.
It really should have been. I think we have to do a little bit of discussion about this, sort of the way we did with our Midnight Movies episode, where we're saying, okay, Midnight Movies, there's a big shadow over that whole topic of Rocky Horror Picture Show, right? I think there's an equal shadow on this one, Mike.
Oh, yeah. Should we say it on the
yeah, I guess we just got to get it out of the way. So we are not going to be picking Back to the Future. But it is a film that is near and dear to both of our hearts. Actually, this is going to date me a little bit. Back to the Future is the movie that got me into movies in the first place.
That's amazing.
I didn't see it in the theater at the time, but in the late 80s, my parents got cable. And as a kid, I was like, finally. I think we've noted on the show before, Mike, we have a division between us where you were a kid who grew up with HBO and I'm the one who didn't, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I got to really enjoy the free HBO preview weekend when that would come around, and you get the booklet in the mail and I would highlight all the movies. And once we had a VCR too, I would just record everything.
Yes.
So even overnight, so I could watch it then. But that's where I first saw Back to the Future. And I was like, holy shit, you can do this with a movie. You can just transport my brain for an hour and 56 minutes. And wow, I was hooked after that. Mainly on movies in general, but obviously the time travel element and everything was just like, holy shit, this is great. Yeah. I need more of this. I went more down a Michael J. Fox path at that point in time, not necessarily time travel, but that is one. It's interesting, even as I've grown up and aged too, where I was like, there's something just very intriguing about this topic that, we'll kind of get into the nitty gritty here a little bit, kind of defining this genre, but what about time travel really grabs your attention? Or do you want any other Back to the Future comments first?
Well, obviously, Back to the Future is one of my comfort movies. Especially during the early days of the pandemic. I found that a lot of times, if there was nothing else to watch, whatever streaming service, I think it was Netflix or something that had it for a while. But I probably logged it, 3 or 4 times during the pandemic, and it always just puts a smile on my face just because the cleverness of that script,
yes,
to me is the best thing. Now, sometimes the sequels are divisive, and sometimes even it's like some days I'll love part 2, and some days I'm just like part 2 is kind of weird, but
yep.
It goes a little off the edge, and 3 kind of I think redeems it. But I'm not saying anything bad about 2, but not as sharp as 1.
Right. You're right. The script specifically, there's just not an inch of fat on that story. Everything is a place and it just fits a perfect puzzle. As a fellow VHS collector, Mike, I was just at a used shop, and they had Back to the Future 3 on VHS, which I do not own on VHS, but it was $7. And for some reason, that was a line for me. I was like, that's too much. I'm already regretting it. I may go back and just grab it after work tomorrow. I have this limit with VHS, and I was like, I don't know, for some reason, if it was 1, obviously, I don't care. I think actually I spent about $20 for my VHS copy of Back to the Future 1 at a antique shop a while ago, but I was like, who cares? I don't care. It's part 1. I'm buying it. But so to me, within this genre of time travel films, there's subgenres, and I think it's probably just because I've dove so deep into this well before. So I've got a few. Hey, let's try it quiz style here, Mike. How about that? I have a few subgenres written out. See if you can come up with examples for these. All right. So one of them would be the apocalypse time travel movie.
Sure. Apocalypse time travel movie.
I may have named these improperly to get your brain going here, but this is how I had named them at least.
Oh gosh. Why can't
All right, so here as a warm up, this one was Terminator 2, 12 Monkeys.
Oh, okay.
You're trying to avert the apocalypse, I guess, via time travel.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Another one was the time loop storyline.
So you got like a Groundhog Day.
Right. Edge of Tomorrow, that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
I haven't seen Looper in a while. Does that? I don't know if that one fits.
Yeah, I would definitely say that that one fits. I
Okay.
remember that that's one that grew on me on subsequent viewings. I think the
Mhm.
first time I saw it, I I'll be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan. It was like
I had the same reaction. I was sort of like so on that one, and I really like Ryan Johnson's stuff, but
I think
uh,
it was one that it was there's always these films that sometimes get so hyped by the nerd critics on
yeah,
Twitter, like the ones who like don't really write for legit websites or something, and it's like, oh, you got to see this, and yeah. So
yeah,
anyway, yeah,
yeah. There's ones that deal specifically with like paradox. I think kind of Back to the Future, like we were just saying, is like, oh crap,
sure.
my mom's fallen in love with me. I'm not going to be bored now. There's also horror ones.
All right.
I was thinking like Event Horizon
Oh yeah, yeah,
kind of
that one.
style, or I mean, it's a terrible movie, but Cloverfield Paradox
Yes.
kind of treads in that a little bit. There's also just general comedy ones. I was thinking like Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah. Palm Springs I think is that's more of a recent one that's almost like it's the same. It's kind of like you got a little bit of the Groundhog Day, but it's definitely it has all these comedic elements. It's very entertaining if you get the shot
Yeah.
to check that one out.
So then there's another one that I think maybe is time travel adjacent, and that would be I said like the Frozen in Time genre. So like a
Mm.
Encino Man or Blast from the Past, which now that I'm saying it out loud, those are both Brendan Fraser movies, I think. Where like you take somebody from one era and you don't time travel them, but like they reemerge or come about in a future time and like what's going on.
Yes.
There's another one. Actually, I don't know if this is a subgenre or not, but like sort of voluntary time travel versus forced time travel, where like Groundhog Day, he's stuck in that loop.
Yeah.
So that's like a forced time travel versus like voluntary, where you're like Bill and Ted, like fuck yeah, let's go time travel kind of thing.
Yeah, or kind of like Minority Report a little bit,
Mm.
where he's able to see into the future
Oh
because that
yeah,
helps him solve the mystery or solve the cases or
yeah,
the
the
things like
pre-crime.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I don't even know. I don't know. There's so many subgenres, and ways you can go with it. Like, because maybe somebody may not even see that as a time travel movie, but he's
yeah,
foreshadowing a lot of things.
yeah.
He sees it as it's about to happen. So I think it's a time travel movie.
I have a pretty liberal definition of time travel, which we'll see with one of my honorable mentions. But no, I definitely see what you mean there too. I was also debating sort of like body swap
Mm,
movies tread a
okay.
little bit into
Yes.
time travel territory.
Yeah,
I
like the
think.
Freaky Friday or
Right, right,
vice versa.
or which one?
Vice versa, which is
Yes.
probably a deep dive into the body swap thing, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
probably not considered one of the better ones. But
No, we're
there's
not talking
just
about quality. We're talking about concept right here.
it
So
just
that
used to
that
be on TV all the time
that
when I
works.
was a kid.
Oh, is that another HBO one?
That was like a local Channel 43 noon Saturday
Oh, yeah,
TV.
yeah, the Saturday afternoon ones.
Yes.
And then I had not realized it until right now, but you know who gets a person, an actor gets their own specific subgenre here within time travel, and that's Rachel McAdams.
Oh my God, yes.
So she's got About Time, she's got The Time Traveler's Wife, she's got Midnight in Paris, and she's got now Doctor Strange.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I need. Yeah.
Kind of again time travel adjacent maybe, but still kind of in the mix there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my god, there's so many options here.
She might show up in one of my
Okay, well we'll
lesser
just move right
films.
on then. So with all these multiple kind of subgenre elements at play here too, is there something that you specifically need to look for or that really grabs you in time travel movies? Like, does it have to have a time travel device in it, or like does the moral dilemma really grab you, or what speaks to you within this genre?
Well, I'll say when looking for this, I was initially trying to find something that was a little bit older, but I more ended up going pretty modern with these selections, and it's nothing against the older ones. It's just I don't know. I wanted something kind of light, kind of fun,
Sure.
with my picks. So yeah, I didn't really have a specific kind of time travel thing that I was going with. It was just kind of scrolling through, the handy dandy IMDb lists
Mhm.
that tend to be out there, and that's kind of the route I went. And I was just kind of I needed something kind of fun for some of these.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I was also like looking through some lists and then I thought, that's got to be like a genre tag on Wikipedia. And
Yeah,
I ended up finding an interesting list that was just like a list of all time travel films,
yeah,
which is kind of a little unwieldy to go through. But I hadn't really kind of registered it until you mentioned that it definitely, there are some early ones. Like you can go all the way back to, I think the first one listed was like Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, or whatever that title is, the Mark Twain
sure,
adaptation. So like very early on, but based on a previously existing story that was already there. But the bulk of it is the modern era. Like there's just not a lot of time travel movies from like the 40s and 50s, or even more recent than that, I guess. But like yeah, the bulk of it is a lot more modern. So it's interesting how that concept became more and more interesting kind of in the modern era for modern audiences versus like catching the imagination earlier on in cinema history.
yeah. I kind of wonder in like literature, was there like a certain time period when those were when that was kind of introduced, like maybe when with the advent of comic books coming in, and then that
Ooh,
then probably lent itself to film
yeah,
around the same time, maybe like in the 50s and 60s, kind of.
that's a good
But
point.
I don't know. But I'm sure there's somebody will probably comment like, idiot. There, time travel's been in things for a lot longer than that. But I
Right,
don't know.
right.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I was trying to aim towards, trying to expand my cinematic,
Yeah.
universe to have older stuff involved. But no, I just coming back to this current decade or slightly after, or slightly
Well, right,
before.
right. Well, what grabbed you then, Mike? What are any honorable mentions you want to shout out?
Well, I will. Okay, so this one it is a little bit older, but one of the ones was Peggy Sue Got Married. So which was and I think Francis Ford Coppola had, he of course had an amazing 1970s, probably, made, at least, I mean, there's three masterpieces of Godfather, Godfather 2, Apocalypse Now. I
The
mean,
Conversation.
yeah. Oh, four. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. He was on a tear.
Yes. In the 80s were
Eh,
not the best for him, but I thought this is a very unique film. It features Kathleen Turner as basically a woman who on the verge of getting divorced, and she uh, basically, is at like kind of this reunion, and she has this time travel back when she is in high school, and Nicolas Cage is her boyfriend, who eventually becomes her husband. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting movie. It's like, I guess it's blending like comedy and drama.
mhm.
It's one of those ones that was also I used to see a lot on HBO back in the day. So I would catch it at probably various points. But I don't know. I thought like the performances, especially by Kathleen Turner,
Mhm.
are super strong, and it shows once again. I mean, maybe one of these days, if we have a Francis Ford Coppola episode, we just talk about his '80s output, which was like, ranged from, you have like the movie about the cars, like A Turner and Mana's Dream, I think is
Oh,
the
Tucker.
Tucker, yeah.
Tucker. Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I think that one's a pretty good one, and the Cotton Club is interesting, but then you have something like One from the Heart, which is like this like really notoriously bad like musical. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I really enjoyed it, and I highly suggested it if you've never seen it. Like I think Jim Carrey has one of his very first film roles in that as well.
Interesting.
And it's very much in the, I guess, the subgenre of travels back, and but at the very end of the movie, not to spoil it, but it's like she kind of, it's all kind of a figment of her imagination.
So it's not quite body swap because she's in the same, but she travels within her own body, but back in time.
Correct.
Okay. No.
She goes back basically to like the 50s,
Okay.
or late 50s, early 60s.
I have not seen this one, and I definitely am going to put it top of my list now because I did not realize there was a kind of time travel element to it.
Yeah.
I just knew it as like that one of those '80s movies from Francis Ford Coppola that I just had always avoided for no good reason other than it was like I think it's like a romantic comedy with Kathleen Turner and Nicolas Cage, and I not that my interest is not piqued. That hook though, that plot definitely hooks me though.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
she was nominated for best actress Oscar for it, and rightfully so. I mean,
nice.
like she has, you know, she's an actress who over the last several years, it's like you don't really see her much anymore,
Right.
and it's like when you look back on something like this, I think it just shows like how good she was.
Yeah.
And I mean, probably still is, but she just doesn't, maybe because of her age, and I don't know, she kind of like, she definitely doesn't look, she's not in the same shape as she was in the 80s, so like, it doesn't seem like she's getting as much work, but
Well, and also if she is choosing not to work as much on her own, or it's that whole thing with Hollywood where like, well, once you hit a certain age for more often than not for women than for male actors, but it happens to male actors as well. It's like, well, you're not fitting a type, so you're not getting parts anymore.
yeah,
So
exactly. She could at least play a grandma or something. Like,
sure. I mean, you got talent, you got talent. You just got to find the right spots there.
any choices from you?
Yeah, I got a couple here. I'll kind of go back and forth, but I guess before I do my honorable mentions, I did want to make a quick little caveat that I
Sure.
did have a couple I really, really, really wanted to pick.
Yeah.
But with this particular topic, it could ruin the experience of watching a movie
Yeah.
if the reveal at the end has a time element to it or a time travel element to it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I was thinking, like, I do want to mention these on the show at some point. So I guess maybe this is a future spoiler for an episode way down the line of like, twist endings or something. I would use a couple of these because you're going along and they were really interesting movies. And then by the like, I'm talking about this one movie in particular. Within the last 5 minutes, you're like, "Oh shit, it's a time travel movie!" And I was just like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And it was a
Yeah.
really good movie up to that point. But then with that hook, you're like, "Oh my god!" Like, I mean, like a M Night Shyamalan kind of reveal, where like
Sure.
it
Sure.
makes you rethink the whole movie. So we'll get to some of those eventually. But what I ended up going with my honorable mentions were a couple of movies that are extremely, extremely low budget movies that kind of made me think, we could have been making time travel movies early on in Hollywood when budgets weren't as crazy because you don't
Yeah.
need a huge budget to do like, giant science fiction special effects. First one I want to shout out is Primer.
Yes.
Primer would have been my main pick, but in doing some research for the show, I was like, oh, Primer's got a good cult life on the internet. If you're looking for time travel movies, it is top recommended with just a quick Google search. It
Yeah.
pops up now. So thumbs up to folks that have been championing that movie for a long time. 2004 movie, Primer, written, directed, produced, starring, edited, and music composed by Shane Carruth. He's only done a few movies, which I would highly recommend seeing anything that he's
Yeah.
done. He did this movie on a budget of $7,000, so true auteur. It
Yeah.
was in control of everything here, and it's stellar. It was shot in like 5 weeks. If I remember correctly, I feel like he also said he had like a 5-person crew. So
Yeah.
like nobody with a cell phone right now has any excuse to not make a movie. Like get creative, get going. I love this one because it really gets into the nitty gritty of like the tech of time
Yes.
travel in like the first third ish of the movie. And I'll be honest, like I've seen this movie at least like a dozen times or so probably, but I don't know what they're talking about. And I don't think, I've heard some people were turned off by it because they're like, I don't even understand what they're talking about right now. I, to me, it's not the point that I understand all the tech. mumbo jumbo that they're talking about. It's the fact that they sell it that they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I don't need all the ins and outs of how they built the thing, but like they have the passion for it and they're communicating it and they clearly understand what's going on. But it also involves like the paradox level, right? Like we were talking about with Back to the Future, where they
Yes.
create basically a, I guess you would call it a coffin, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
These boxes that are in a storage unit that the two main characters crawl into and or they turn on at the beginning of the day and then they go to a hotel room to stay just out of anyone's way. They do not interact with the world at all. And then at the end of the day they crawl into the box and that creates a loop where now they have a second copy of themselves that can go out and about throughout the day, coming out of the box. I think I'm describing this right. Anyway, it's this great kind of loop of a story and that you realize it gets more and more complex as it goes and they're trying to like, well, we'll look up stock prices this day while we're in the hotel and then we can invest money, we can get rich. And so there's all these kind of things that they're playing with when you're in a voluntary time loop, kind of similar to Groundhog Day, where he's
Yeah.
in an involuntary time loop and doesn't know how to get out of it. They're in a voluntary time loop and how complicated that can get. Anyway, I dig that one a lot, so I wanted
Oh
to
yeah.
highlight that as a mention, even though it wasn't like my main pick. But if you haven't seen that one, watch it immediately.
I'm just going to add real quick. I remember his follow up movie or Upstream Color
Yeah.
is another one. It's like it doesn't relate to this particular episode, but it just that's another movie that he made for a slightly higher budget, but still way low.
Oh yeah.
As compared to anything else, and it was a movie that at the time when I saw it, with friends, it was like we had so many like deep conversations about it, even if we didn't fully understand everything. That guy, I mean, I hope at some point he does get a budget and he can make something super huge, but maybe he prefers to make them that low.
Yeah, I feel like he really likes that personal touch and wants to just be full, like almost Kubrick level to me is what the impression I get seeing interviews
Sure.
with him, where he wants control of every element of the movie. And
Yeah.
sometimes the best way to do that is to like not work with a huge budget and have people expecting things from you or wanting control over you. So,
Yeah.
what else you got for honorable mentions, Mike?
I'm gonna go with one that was a little more recent, and it reminded me when I remember seeing it in the theater and being blown away by it. Source Code, which came out in 2011, directed by Duncan Jones, who is AKA David Bowie's son.
Oh, that's right.
And he actually he went to a college here in Ohio. I can't remember which one, but it was College of Worcester actually.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But Source Code is very much. It reminded me of Minority Report, in which you have Jake Gyllenhaal basically is this army captain who he's sent into this digital recreation of a real life train explosion where he has to determine who the terrorist who bombed it. So like he's going through this train crash like over and over and over again. And it's a really compelling, just like as it kind of unfolds, and you as the viewer are trying to like, you think who it's going to be, but then like there's kind of there's some twists and turns
Mhm.
as the movie goes along. It's a really cool subgenre of the time thing where he's kind of going in this loop. And I think I don't know if Duncan Jones, like, it doesn't seem like he's had much lately, because he put out a Warcraft movie that
Oof,
was
I saw that.
kind of rough.
Yeah.
But I honestly think he's a very talented guy, because I loved his first, or one of his first movies, Moon,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
with Sam Rockwell. I hope we get to see something from him again pretty soon. But maybe that Warcraft stink hard to shake a little bit.
He did one after Warcraft 2 called Mute that I think was one of those went right to
Oh,
streaming
okay.
and no one really talked about it, including myself because I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
That if I remember was like a sci-fi, like he seems really interested in taking like what you would call like that high concept sci-fi idea, and like
Yeah.
really like exploring that, because Moon is that way, Source Code's that way, and I got the impression, at least from the trailer or some reviews I read at the time, that Mute was kind of similar too. So maybe Warcraft is the exception in
I
his career.
yeah, I see. It was a Netflix, so it's
Okay.
probably one of those movies that was put out there with little to no fanfare
Yep.
and sits on.
We need to come up with a topic, like a phrase for that we can use to drop in and do shows about that every now and then, like lost in the stream or something. I don't
Yeah,
know, because I was like, there's so many times where it's a director or an actor or a writer that I really enjoy. I'm like, wait, I can watch that right now when this came out a year ago. How did I never hear about this?
you've been flixed.
Oh, that's great. Well, another one, it doesn't quite fall in the you've been flixed category, but it was one that kind of, it just, I mean, similar to Primer. Primer did have a theatrical release in 2004, maybe it was into 2005, I forget which year. I didn't end up seeing it in the theater at the time when it came out, but it was, it's a time period when, like, art house releases were a thing. And if you caught enough attention, you got a good enough word of mouth, then, maybe you would catch on. You have a little indie hit
Mhm.
going on your hands here. Primer was not one of those. Like I mentioned, made for 7,000, grossed, I think, like 800,000. The other film I want to give an honorable mention to is Coherence from
Mm.
2013. This one was made on a much larger budget of $50,000, but it only grossed 100,000 when it came out in the theater. So I feel like this one was just one of those. Just it didn't quite catch on with audiences when it came out. It's written and directed, and I think also produced by James Ward Burkett. It was his directorial debut, and if you want to, I mean, this is my honorable mention, so I don't want to do a deep dive into it or anything. But if you want to read up
Sure.
on the development of this one, it's really fascinating. It was a lot of actors he was improvising with, and I think it was like his house. And it just sort of like they just kind of kept building and building and building this story. And this is also one too. I'm going to be very careful how I describe it, because I don't want to get into spoiler territory at all. Because this is one of those, since $100,000 worth of people saw it in theaters, people have not seen it, and I don't
Yeah.
want to ruin the experience of seeing it. It's free on Canopy right now, so if you want to stream it there without any commercial interruptions, it's ready to go. I'm just going to give you maybe like stuff about the first 10, 15 minutes of it. It's a group that's gathering together for a dinner with friends. There's a little bit of tension that's pretty obvious right away, and so that's its own human drama thing going on. Meanwhile, up in the sky, this comet is passing by. And so as this comet passes by, and this is where the time travel element kicks in, it fractures it fractures time for everybody, where they realize that a house down the street has copies of themselves
Mm.
in it. So as you can imagine, you can do that with a low budget pretty easy. There's no big tech involved. It's just like the power goes out, and then all of a sudden they're like, "What's going on? Oh, that house over there has power." And they peek, and somebody peeks in the window. They're like, "Oh crap! Is that us?" And
Yeah.
and it's really very down to earth in the way that the characters deal with it. Because somebody in the group is like, "Get the fuck out of here! No, it's not. What are you talking?" And they have to go through this whole thing and slowly realize what's going on, and they realize, okay, wait, are we affecting each other? And then that house comes to visit them, and they get free. Like, so there's a lot of possibilities, as you can imagine. There, it's it's really kind of fascinating the way that it kind of opens the door for maybe more of like a multiverse kind of idea. I think of it
Yeah.
more as time travel though, because as you get to know the characters, and this is not a spoiler to it, but as you get to know the characters, you realize different decisions were made. Like it's a different timeline of decisions in one house versus another house. And so
Interesting.
you have characters at different stages of their life making different decisions. If you watch this movie, and I would highly recommend it if you're into time travel stuff, watch how the movie uses hard cut to blacks
Mm.
throughout the movie. So like there's normal editing going on. It's very handheld camera style, and it's just intriguing. Every few minutes, you're just like another new thing pops up. You're like, oh my god, that's fascinating. What are they going to do with that? But it's interesting how the movie cuts to black at certain times to mark time. I'll just kind of leave it
Yeah.
at that. But the cuts mean something.
I do remember that was talked about at the Cleveland Film Festival a couple years ago,
Mm-hmm.
being like one of the standouts, and didn't get to see it. So
Yeah.
I'm now gonna seek it out.
Yes. Definitely seek that one out. Any other honorable mentions, Mike?
No, no. What did you end up picking?
Oh, cool. So I went back a little bit, and actually, this one I discovered going through that long ass Wikipedia list. As soon as I saw the title, I was like, oh, okay, that's my pick. It is the movie Run Lola Run from
Mm,
1998.
yes.
Wish I was a stranger who understands the sky. I wish I was a starship in silence flying by.
So also gives us a little international perspective as well. It's a German film directed by Tom Tykwer. I think I have the pronunciation right there because I'm not great with the German W's and V's
Yeah.
or Y's and V's and stuff in there. It stars Franca Potente, who I'm probably mispronouncing her name. Kind of her breakout role on the international scene. She would end up coming to Hollywood and making some Hollywood films as well. This is another one too. I don't want to do too much as far as spoilers go, but this is another one of those. I would say it's got a time loop is going on for sure. Let me just do the quick initial setup. Does not spoil anything. It's Frank. She plays the titular Lola. She's dating Manny. He's a bagman in I think it's in Berlin. It might be an unnamed city. I'm not actually remembering the city, but you know, let's say it's Berlin. It's a major city. He's a bagman. He has to deliver 100,000 Deutschmarks to his boss. He frantically calls her, and on the phone, he explains that while riding on the subway to drop off the money, he fled when he saw like cops, and he left the bag behind, and he saw a homeless man going through the bag or grabbed the bag or whatever. She's like, I'm fucked. You know, I have to deliver this 100,000 Deutschmarks. And Manny, his plan is like, I'm just going to go rob a bank because this guy's going to kill me in 20 minutes if I don't get him his money. And so Lola hangs up the phone. She's like, shit. So she runs out to go join Manny. And we go through one entire scenario where at the end of it, she is killed. And then she wakes up and she's on the phone, and Manny just told her that whole story again. And the whole thing plays out again. And so throughout the movie, we go through this loop. So it's kind of one of those like time loop, Groundhog Day style things. But it's fascinating the way that Tom Tickfor put this movie together, where there's like one sequence is animated,
Mm,
Lola, and it's all frantic. This movie's 80 minutes. It feels like it's 20 minutes. It moves at a clip, and it deals with kind of that idea of the butterfly effect, kind
yes.
of chaos theory, where because she makes a little bit of a different decision on the second run through the day, all this other stuff changes. And then as she goes through it, another, you know, so you can see how as it repeats, you see all these different little fractured narratives. And as it's even down to the level where she passes like a woman on the street, she just bumps into her. The director then instead he cuts away to like 5 or 6 photos of what that woman's life is like because Lola bumped into her
Yeah.
versus in another scenario she talks to her, another bunch of photos showing how that expands. So it gives you this kind of expanded universe too of what the different even tiny little interactions do to all the other people's lives. And that sounds very sprawling, which again, it's like it's 80 minutes. It like this movie you blink and you miss it kind of
Yeah. No, zero
kind of
fat.
thing. Yeah, exactly. But it's also interesting because it deals with as I think great time travel movies do, kind of free will and your own choices, or is everything deterministic and going to happen no matter what you do? This movie, I think, kind of straddles that in an interesting way because some stuff she just can't avoid happening, and some stuff because she's there early or late at different times happens differently. So that kind of has that deterministic quality versus like she's also making decisions and she has memory of what happened on the first go through, or you know what I mean, like that Groundhog Day thing where Bill Murray is accumulating memories, even though everybody else is living the same day, doing the same exact thing over and over again. So this one, highly recommend. I apologize, I didn't check to see if it was streaming anywhere before we recorded. I just went and revisited my DVD copy of it. But this came out in '98. It was a huge hit, made on a huge budget compared to my other ones of like about $2 million over in Germany, and made I think 25 million worldwide. I remember seeing it at the local art house when I was in college, and like it was just all of the talk of the film department was we got to go see Run the Run again and again. And it was also that time period, which you probably remember this, Mike, late '90s. The trailers were hiding the fact that it was a foreign film,
Yes.
and this
Yeah.
was one of those two where like it's just the pulsing music, And I think it was even titles on screen. I don't think it was even a voiceover narration. And just it was like, oh, it's this action kind of frantic, almost gangster movie because like they have to rob a bank, they have to rob a grocery. Like it's all the action scenes of it put together to pulsing, late '90s kind of club music, hiding the fact that it's foreign, but also there's not a ton of dialogue either for this movie. And I feel like people listening to this podcast probably aren't scared of a foreign film. So
Yeah, no, I think it was like that kind of magical time of independent films, like the independent kind of film explosion of the 90s, like
Mhm.
mid to late 90s. And like I remember seeing certain ads for it on MTV.
Oh,
And
that'd be perfect for MTV. Yeah.
yeah, but you're right, it was like you would just have thought like, oh, like this is like, there doesn't seem to be a lot of dialogue or
Right.
something.
Right. Oh, it's an action movie.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the music is what kind of made it pumping,
Oh,
So
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's
So.
interesting.
And I hadn't really thought about it as a time travel movie until looking into this episode, which is why when I saw the title, I was like, "Oh, that's my pick." Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it totally fits with this. So, what's your official pick, Mike? What did you have for time
So,
travel films?
so mine, I did go the Rachel McAdams route.
Ooh, okay.
I have never seen until this episode, About Time from 2013.
My name is Tim, and this is the year that would change my life forever. Happy New Year! I just didn't know it yet.
Tim, my dear son, this is going to sound strange, but there's this family secret that the men in the family can travel in time.
This is such a weird joke.
It's not a joke.
If it's true, which it isn't.
Although it is.
But if it was, which it's not.
Which it is.
How would I actually...
You go into a dark place, clench your fists, think of the moment you're going to, and you'll find yourself there.
It's going to be a complicated year.
It's going to be a complicated life.
For me, it was always going to be all about love. I'm Tim.
I'm Mary.
It's my mother's name.
I remind you of your mother?
Obviously, I should have thought this through more. Could you give me 1 second? I'm Tim.
I'm Mary.
I love your eyes.
Do you?
I love the rest of your face, too. Haven't even looked further down, but I'm sure it's all fantastic. I'm sure it'll be better next time.
Well done. Some people make a real mess of it the first time.
Amateurs. Some days you want to relive forever. Will you marry me?
I think I'll go for yes.
Some days you only want to live once.
I am so uninterested in a life without your father.
It never occurred to me that I might lose you.
I never said you could fix everything. Not without consequences.
It's so good to see you.
We've never met before.
It's a favorite of my. I have three sisters. It's a favorite of my siblings, and I think they've asked me if I've watched it before, and I was always I'm not that interested. But this movie, it's directed by Richard Curtis, who I feel like as a filmmaker is one of the more. I hate to say he's not cool, but it's like he makes these movies that are kind of feel good romantic comedies. It's like
Yeah.
it's definitely it's the anti Run Lola Run. That's like the definition of cool. And
Right.
somebody like us, like kind of hipster movie watchers, like we'll see the trailer for About Time and you're like, I can probably skip that. But
Well, in my head, he's the Love Actually guy, and I really hate that movie. I mean, if you
Right.
love it, that's great. Enjoy your movie, but I hate that movie.
yeah, he is the Love Actually guy. He also wrote Yesterday, which was kind of another clever ish. He's like that quintessential British kind of writes these things with Hugh Grant usually. But this one, I actually found it, at least at the beginning, I found it to be pretty charming. And the basic premise is you have this young guy played by Domhnall Gleeson, who is Brendan Gleeson's son. He was in the newer Star Wars movies and everything. On his 21st birthday, his dad reveals to him that the men in the family have the ability to time travel. What they have to do is go into a closet or a dark room or like a small space, and they clench their fists, and they're able to say if something doesn't go right, they can have the ability to do it over again. It's like at the beginning of the film, it's he goes to college and he really wants to have a girlfriend. He has this like this playwright of a roommate who's kind of a prick. It's like he wants to appease the roommate, but on the same night he also meets Rachel McAdams, and he kind of messes up his timeline at first because he wants to like appease his roommate, but then learns that he has to figure out how to get the girl. And it's like once he gets the girl, it kind of loses a lot of the conflict of the movie.
Okay.
And where our stalwart of Back to the Future, when you make changes, it has this ripple effect on the rest of time.
Okay, yeah.
Where this movie, it's like it's always a convenient thing. So like the rules kind of change in the concept of the script, where he gets his way, and it doesn't really have it's not one of the time travel movies where if he makes this decision or whatever, it doesn't really have like big consequences, I guess I'm saying.
Okay.
But like I said, for the most of the runtime, until about like maybe about 40 minutes left, I did find it to be a pretty charming movie. The man who plays his father, Bill Nighy, I think is just one of those, whenever you see him in particularly like a Richard Curtis movie, like a Pirate Radio or something, he's just like this like super cool dude.
Well, even in Love Actually, he's
exactly
cool dude.
Yeah, and like here he's like this like charming father and
Yeah.
figure and everything, and like when he's in it, the movie really works. But when they try to throw in, there's like this subplot involving like his sister who is, she has like abusive boyfriends and stuff. It's like that's where it gets a little bit melodramatic for me. But it's certainly not as I was kind of dreading watching it, and just because it has been like suggested to me so many times. But
yeah,
I actually found like it's not that bad, for about 3/4 of it.
Gotcha.
And the ending just kind of sputtered out a little bit for me. But yeah, a mild recommendation, I will say.
All right. I have not seen that one, but it's definitely one like I've almost clicked play on a couple of different times because I was like, the time travel was really pulling me in. But I think it was the poster that's usually used for it just gave me like Rachel McAdams like in the rain with her romantic opposite. I was like, I'm getting Notebook vibes. I'm not in the mood. I don't think I'm going to do this one kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But she's a great actress. I adore her. She's been in like everything from like great comedies to great dramas to time travel movies. So like she's operating in a genre that I clearly enjoy. So I got to give this one a watch.
Yeah, and it is available to stream if you have the Stars Network currently.
Ah, okay.
So
I don't, but I
I'll
just get it from my library.
Yeah. So our official watch challenge recommendations for time travel films are Run Lola Run from 1998 and About Time from 2013. Many thanks to you, Sarah, for that topic. Aaron, what challenge do we have in front of us for next time?
So for next time, we're looking at going towards the end of September here. We're going to allow a little bit of a Halloween creep into our end of September episode. We are going to start off with zombie films, which was a submitted topic from Natalie J. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. That's a subgenre of horror that I feel like I haven't seen a ton of. So I'm looking forward to trying to dive in and seeing what we can get in the zombie film subgenre there. But as always, we're always taking listener suggestions. So anything you want to send our way, genres, topics, things you'd like us to dive in and cover, just follow the links we've got here in the show notes on whatever device you are listening to this on.
Until next time, folks, rate and review the show wherever you find it, and we'll see you on the next challenge.